The Dancing with Wisdom podcast.
Welcome to the Dancing with Wisdom podcast, where we invite you to join us on a quest to make sense of life. Hi, my name's Sunil Raheja.
And I'm Elliot Frisbee, and we have been touching on the past couple of podcasts about 4 vital questions, which appears in Sunil's book, Dancing with Wisdom, which is out in March. That's 2021, in case whenever you're listening to this podcast. March 17th, I believe.
Yep,
Yeah,
March 17th.
that's really cool. So question number 1 was being. Question number 2 was relating. So obviously being was, the question was basically, if I'm going to be a person I can live with, what kind of person that would be. Relating, and that's like how you're relating with family and friends and the colleagues and finding a healthy balance between like the sober seriousness and the fun in your life. So the question number 3 is doing, which is what I would like to talk about today. So it's question number 3, doing, and I'll just read what it says here. If I am to do something meaningful with my life, what kind of work should I do?
Yes. And our world, thank you, Elliot, our world is full of doing. There's so many things that we can do. And, people talk about being so busy and overburdened and taxed. And yet there are things that only you can do and things that, in the midst of all the busyness of things, there are things that only you can do. And how do I, as well, filter through and think, is this really what I'm called to do? Is this really something that is going to make a meaningful impact in the life of others or provide the fulfillment that we all yearn for?
Okay, so I still don't understand, like from the doing point of view, what you're saying, how do you know you're doing the right thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're building on the being and the relating questions. So as I'm secure in who I am and who the person I've been created to be, I understand my strengths and weaknesses. I understand where my giftings lie better. Then the relating, as I understand the needs around me through the relationships I have with those who I'm connected to. And from that will flow a sense of, actually, I'm uniquely equipped in this area or maybe not in that area, as well as the circumstances of life, the season of life that I'm in. But I use a quote in the book from Dawson Trotman, who says, never do anything that someone else can and will do when there is so much of importance to be done, which others cannot or will not do. So what we're really talking about with doing is looking at the unique things that you're called to do. One of my favorite verses in the New Testament is, it says, we are God's workmanship, created in Christ Jesus to do good works which he's prepared in advance for us to do. So, whether or not you take this view of God, what I'm trying to say is that each of us is unique, unique as there are snowflakes. And each of us has gone through certain experiences in life, good, bad, or ugly, and yet they've equipped us in a way to do things that no one else can do. In a sense, I feel very privileged, for example, again, doing this podcast with you, Elliot, on the subject of wisdom, and we're looking at it from a particularly unique angle, which is unique to our own personalities and characters, which will appeal to certain people, but will not appeal to other people.
Well, you're saying about doing here, and I'm just thinking, like, we're shooting this. We live in England, so in part of the United Kingdom, and we're very, very fortunate. We're very, very fortunate in the world, and we have a lot of variety. So is part of that exploring all the options available to you, to discover what the ultimate direction that you want to be going into.
Yeah.
Or are we talking on a much more spiritual level?
I'd like to say both, actually. I mean, the other thing to say is, obviously, we're quite privileged in the sense that we have, we have the opportunity to explore and ask these questions. Some people have jobs and things they have to do because that's the way they put food on the table. That's the way they can survive financially. At the same time, I think there are more and more people who have more discretion about what they do with their time and how they spend it. And it becomes a more and more pressing issue as to what is, is the life I'm living the same as the life that wants to live in me? Is another quote from Parker Palmer, um, that's saying that there are particular needs in the world, and how do I connect with those needs in a way that can make a difference? And each of us are uniquely qualified to answer that according to our own background, experience in life, and experiences.
But the question here is, if I'm to do something meaningful with my life, what kind of work should I do?
Yeah.
So that is the question. So for me, for example, I truly believe that from where my process of my life has been, I've always been working towards like the one goal. I truly believe that I'm on the path that I should be on, and I am here now doing it. I believe that it's meaningful work, but there is something else which I should be pushing more as well. I won't go into that now, but there's something else I should be doing, and I've addressed that in my 2021 plan. Yeah.
Good.
So, but my point is, but that's taken a lot of process, and I've had a lot of knocks. It's been up, it's been down. It hasn't been easy at times. There's been tears, there's been laughter, there's been fun, there's been exploring, and there's been complete sadness. So within that, there was a lot to go through, but I truly believed that it was the right path to
take. Yeah.
So is doing the thing that you're meant to do, is it a process? Will you be tested?
Absolutely, yeah. It's good point.
Is it a case saying, do you know what, I really good with
funny,
hair, so I'm going to be a hairstylist?
No. I think it's fascinating. Yeah, you're raising fascinating points. So, for example, again, I can talk about my own experience. I became a doctor. I went into medical school to study medicine, became a doctor, and I really struggled, and I really hated it because it just was not the way that I was wired. And then I found a particular niche that I particularly enjoyed, which was psychiatry, because it fitted my personality and temperament in terms of relating to people, engaging with them, and understanding their needs and issues on at a deeper level. But what I find fascinating is what I've realized is there's three things that I do really well. I actually can only do three things. Everything else I'm pretty hopeless at. I can read, as it were. I can read books and read and listen to books and concepts. I can relate, and I can reflect. Those are the three things that I can do.
In your opinion?
In my opinion. But the point I'm getting to is that that's basically all I do in my life. So I've done that as I've done that as a psychiatrist. I do that as a coach. I do that. I feel that I'm in the zone when I'm reading, reflecting, and relating.
And are you 100% confident that those three things are all that you should be doing?
Ah, okay. That's a great question. So I'm also that's great. In a sense, in terms of the work that I'm called to do, I think so, yes. But I'm also married with a family, with other responsibilities. And so in that and in a sense, it's recognizing that there are areas that I'm not so good at. For example, I'm not very good at practical. My wife's much better at DIY than I am. And
okay, jumping on that.
Yeah.
Would you like to be good at DIY?
Given time and space, I'd be interested in exploring. But what I've always fallen back on is, if you imagine, for example, if you got a scale of 0 to 10, and you'll say a 2 or a 3 at something, if you work really, really hard, you can become a 4 or a 5. But if you're a 7 or 8 at something and you work really, really hard, you could become a 9 or a 10. And I think there's something about finding out what your strengths are. And, for example, I take a number of my coaching clients through Strengths Finder, which is from Gallup. And I think that's a great resource to look at what are the areas that you're particularly uniquely strong in a work context. But at the same time, we've got to, how can I put it? We've got to acknowledge that maybe this is more to do with, more to do with character or putting yourself in situations where you're the student rather than the teacher. I think that there's something important that's there.
But also there's the doing, there's different types of doing as well.
Yeah.
So there's doing what you think is your ultimate kind of path.
Yes.
Which is, say, what we could argue is we're doing here.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also doing in your everyday life.
Yeah.
Like if I like
errands to be run, bills to be paid.
Yeah. So I like to bring my daughter here, and I'll do this with my son as well. So I mentioned George Swift before, who has been very influential to me from the BBB. They've been great, but he has created this thing, and it does incorporate the 0 to 10 that you talk about. And I've actually brought that into my daughter's spelling.
Oh, right.
So I said, okay, so where are you with your spelling? Where do you want it? She goes, Daddy, I want to be a 10.
Oh, right.
I said, where are you? And she said, I'm here.
Yeah. I
said, okay, so what do you think you need to be to have the will to get to the next one? And it was like, I need to be more confident. I need to, and I was, what do you think? That's a great thing to have for a 7-year-old.
Yeah.
She's given me the answers. I know.
Wonderful,
But the fact is, that's applied in that everyday. That's an everyday thing. But when you watch, but when I look at my daughter, like, you're going to be fine, because as of just a human being, she's free. She questions. She and she's just a beautiful person. So she's actually doing 100% perfect.
She's giving herself fully into
on just being. There we are there. But then there is that everyday stuff where she's trying to do better. You see, so that's where I'm getting a bit of confusion, because I feel like there are two different things. And is there a balance in doing amongst them all?
I'm still not getting.
So basically, at home, for example, I could do a lot more with, say, the accounts.
Yes.
Yeah, with the accounts, I could be bringing in a lot more for that.
Yeah.
I could probably go and find a better software to use.
Yes, but is that the best use of your time? I would say, in a sense, from a business perspective, because.
But does it have to be about business?
That's a good question.
That's my point. Yeah. You see, this is where I'm
torn.
But
because you have finite time, my question to you, though, would be, is that, is it taking away time from your wife and children? Is it taking is it draining you, or is it filling you up? That's it. That's the other big question, because there are tasks that drain us, and there are tasks that fill us up. And it's important for our emotional and psychological well-being that we do tasks that fill us up and that are productive and helpful to others. I'm talking about in that context. So if you, for example, you hated the accounts and you really just dreaded looking at them, that would suck away energy from everything else, because that would need to be done. Whereas if you found somebody who loves doing accounts, then it'd be a win-win, because the accounts would get done, and you would, you could devote the time you would have had to spend on the accounts doing stuff that you're actually good at and enjoy doing.
Yeah, but so if I agree with you, but if you go back to what you just said about business, so in business, for example, you've got the accounts, you've got marketing, you've got planning, you've got delivery, you've got the back office, you've got all of that, and you could try and do that yourself if you're one person, but as quick as you can, you get other people involved whose skill set that is, because you can't be highly skilled at all of them. What are your strengths? You focus on that.
Yeah, you've only got so much time.
Exactly, but also you've got what you're skilled at.
Yes,
you see, but maybe business is, we talk a lot about business in this fast-paced world.
Yes,
but doing is doing. When you say about doing in your question, could that also be broken down as what are your priorities?
Yeah, absolutely. It's very much about priorities, because you can, I think David Allen says, you can do anything you want, but you can't do everything. The time, especially with the huge number of choices we've got. So I really want to be focused on the things that, in a sense, that give me the greatest leverage and the greatest opportunity and result. That's the key thing. And I've got to think about that in a holistic way. That give the best payoff, body, mind, spirit, and ultimately, as a disciple of Christ, I'd say for eternity, really.
Okay, so it also brings up the question is about being meaningful and in the moment, which we sort of touched on previously. For example, this podcast we're gonna do. Then we're gonna go and have lunch.
Yes,
right.
Good.
That's what we're gonna do. We're gonna have lunch. Okay.
Yeah.
At the moment, I am doing this. I am 100% in this. I am loving this, and I really feel like we are doing what we're supposed to be doing right now.
Yeah.
When it comes to lunch, I have a couple of clients we're putting out for their audiobooks, and I'm going to be speaking to them, and I'm going to be completely engaged doing
with them,
in
yeah.
that.
Yeah, yeah.
Hopefully find some space for my soup. And then what we'll do is we'll come back, and then I will be, nothing else will matter except this moment right now. You see. So when it comes to doing, does it have to be a one thing, or could it be a case of doing is being mindful and the very best with clarity of whatever you are doing at the time?
Well, that's the most enjoyable. I mean, obviously, what you're touching on is this area of multitasking as well. If people doing bits and pieces here, there, and everywhere, and or doing them simultaneously.
But I'm wondering if that's reality for people, you see.
Well, it is their reality, but I'd say it actually sucks the life out of you, and actually it's less fulfilling, less enjoyable, less productive.
But not if, for example, if you're able to do it with clarity.
I think you can. I think we can. I think we kid ourselves as to how clarity. Yeah.
Well, I spoke to my wife the other day, and
women are better about multitaskers, are they?
Yeah, they're amazing. But I was talking to my wife the other day, and we talked about the factor of time.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to go into our personal situations with everything. But what I will say is that I sat down with her and I said, right, you are, what's stopping this happening? What's stopping this happening? We're all based around time. Yeah. Obviously, there's a lot of homeschooling and this, that, and the other at the moment. That's fine. But there's lots of other factors that are involved. And I said, okay, well, this area here, you're only doing because you're worried about that person there. That thing there, you're only doing because of this. That thing there, you need to disconnect from that entirely and break all emotional contact, because all you're doing is helping somebody else's emotional need.
You're doing it for emotional reasons.
Which isn't actually a good thing. And then you're putting so much pressure on yourself, and you could just see the weight go off.
Oh, wonderful.
And since then, cleared it off. Now, still, time is a factor, but when she does everything, she does it with more clarity because she hasn't got the back of the brain
nagging feeling.
Saying, I've got to that as well. I wonder what that person's going to think. I wonder what that person's going to think. So I always say another thing with social media, don't even worry about responding to a WhatsApp or responding to this. If it's important, they'll call you. If you've got some time, make some time, sit down and then respond.
Yes, that's right. And that's why you also, the other key thing is that the danger of all our relationships being through social media or virtually, you need to have real face-to-face time with people as well.
So doing...
Yeah.
So it's a big one.
It's huge.
It's a lot bigger than I thought it was going to be.
It's huge. No, because we're called. We're called to unique work, and it's so important that we get the right balance in that our identity isn't wrapped up in our doing. We talked about that in a few podcasts ago, because we become human doings rather than human beings. But if we get the being right, then we can then do the things that we're uniquely equipped to do. I mean, I love this quote from L.P. Jacks. He says, "A master in the art of living draws no sharp distinction between his work and his play, his labour and his leisure, his mind and his body, his education and his recreation. He hardly knows which is which. He simply pursues his vision of excellence through whatever he's doing, and leaves others to determine whether he's working or playing. To himself, he always appears to be doing both." And that's for me, that's really living life to the full and really living it with great zest and enthusiasm, because you know that you're called to a particular task. You're seeing that you have skills and gifts that are helping others. You're seeing that how they're helped by it. What could be better than that?
So doing, is it for, should we be looking to be doing whatever it may be for the greater good of those around us? Should we be doing it for the greater good of ourselves?
Well, yeah. Well, I think that there is there's this unique combination of doing obviously for good for others, but also doing it in a way you want to do it in a way that's cheerful and positive and encouraging, rather than through gritting your teeth. There is a school of some Christian thought, which I don't think is biblical at all, which says if I'm hating it, it must be God's will, which I think is can't be the case.
No, I don't like that at all.
And there will be things that will be difficult. But again, I think walking in wisdom, dancing with wisdom is about, even though the task may be hard, even though they may not be the fruit that you want. But I think God can give you a joy and a perseverance and a patience through that can enable you to actually dance through that.
Sure. I mean, I had a chat with someone fairly recently about selfishness.
Mm.
I was like, oh, so selfish. Those are such a bad thing, selfishness. And I was like, is it? Is it really be selfish? You know, it's like when you mentioned about ego.
Yeah.
Ego's seen as a negative word.
Yeah.
Okay. But like, if you look at selfishness, if you are selfish and say, I'm going to do this because you truly believe it's a good thing and it's a calling, and you are making a better person for yourself, it's making you a better and fuller and richer person and in a happy place, then by doing that, you are suddenly in a better place to be a better person
I think,
for those around.
Yeah, I think the distinction you're making is self-care as well, because you can't give what you haven't got. And so, even, the second commandment is love your neighbor as you love yourself, is what it says. So there is something about, it's that classic thing, isn't it? When they say in aeroplanes, is that in case of decompression in the back cabin, if the oxygen mask comes down, put it on yourself first before you put it on the person next to you. Because what's use is it if you're trying to help the other person and you're dying of oxygen? The best contribution that you make to others starts off with who you are as a person. If I'm going to do a task or a job and I'm going to do that in a grumpy, in a negative, complaining, cynical, angry attitude, I'm not doing anybody any service there. I need to give it with my full energy, with my full zest, with my full joy. That's real giving. So the being and the doing are really closely connected.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
I can see why they're 4 vital questions.
Yeah.
I can suddenly see, because everything that you do is also affecting your friends, your family. So your being and what you're doing is affecting what's happening in question 2.
Yeah,
I get it. This is really resonating.
Yeah.
Okay, let's leave it there. Can you sum up what we've been talking about, please?
So we've been talking about doing the work that you're uniquely called to do. And we're in a world where there's so much competing demands and pressures on our time and attention. And while we acknowledge that, we also need to find a quiet place and begin ask the question, and it is a quest to work out what are the things that only I can do that can make the maximum positive impact. Now, it might not be dramatic, or it may be dramatic, but whatever it is, you are called to unique work and path. And that's really what I encourage our viewers and listeners to really stop and reflect on. And that is part of what it really means to dance with wisdom. But the doing is closely connected to the being, because we give of ourselves. And, I think Mother Teresa said that there are not all of us can do great things, but we can do small things with great love. So even, that's the key thing. And we can do that best, I think, in areas where we know that we're particularly gifted. So it's finding that and our unique calling and purpose.
Well, that's great. Thanks so much, Sunil. Let's hear what you've got to say. Have you got any thoughts on this? Anything you'd like to share? Then do, if you're watching on YouTube, then do leave a comment below. We'd love to read that. And if you'd like us to discuss that on the podcast, then let us know as well. And if you're listening on the podcast, then do leave us a nice review. Let us know your opinions and share it with your friends, which is we want more people to join us on this quest. So do subscribe. And Sunil, if they want to get hold of you, maybe they might feel more comfortable to contact you directly.
That's drsunil.com. You can reach us over there.
And they come directly to you.
You can certainly contact us because through our admin. Through our admin.
And of course, you can get a hold of me, Elliot Frisby, Elliot@monkeynutuk.com, 2 L's, 2 T's, or you can get us on the Monkey Nut Audiobooks or Monkey Nut Audiobook Instagram or YouTube or Facebook. So, Sunil, another interesting one. I'm sort of stumbling my words a bit at the end here because I've suddenly realised the interconnection between the 3. So I'm really excited for the 4th.
Okay, we'll look forward to that then.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye.
You've been listening to the Dancing with Wisdom podcast, presented by Sunil Rahija and Elliot Frisby. For details on the Dancing with Wisdom book and its accompanying workbook, please visit drsunil.com. If you know someone who would enjoy this podcast, then please share it, give it a thumbs up on YouTube, and help it to grow by giving it a nice review. Life's challenges can diminish, define, or develop you. Which one will it be? Make sure you hunger for the wise one. The choice is yours.